On this week's episode of the Geek State, Captain Marvel has arrived from the Kree homeworld to destroy the box office.
I'm feeling extra complete after hitting a collecting milestone this week.
The Dark Knight turns 80 years old this month, and he doesn't look a day over 30. We take a trip to Gotham to chart his movie history. All that and more on this episode of the Geek State.
What's the use of learning French anyway?
Dick, I'm surprised at you. Language is the key to world peace. If we all spoke each other's tongues, perhaps the scourge of war would be ended forever.
Stand by alert.
This is it!
This episode stars your favorite Chris when Evans, Pratt, Pine, and Hemsworth are unavailable. This is the Geek State.
From Arkham Asylum to the Batcave, this is the Geek State. I'm Chris, and joining me, as always, my buddy James. James, how is it going? You ready to talk some Batman and do a little Captain Marvel too? So
I must say, Chris, I'm feeling quite complete today.
Yes, that's
quite complete.
Yeah, I want to get to that. Before though, because we're just hot off on the heels of Captain Marvel being released in theaters. I'm not sure if you've seen this yet, right?
I have not. I did not make it out this weekend, unfortunately.
Which is actually works out pretty well as far as kind of what we want to do with the show, because I don't want to. The movie just came out. I don't want to go into a full-on spoilery thing, talk about all the things that that happened in the movie just yet, because we're busy people, and getting to the movies is not always something we can do on a everyday basis. No one's paying us to go to the movies just yet. AMC or Regal or anybody want to make an offer. We'll
Movie Pass.
I don't think that they're going to be much help.
They're not taking on very many sponsors right now.
No, I don't think so. Plus, I just read today that they overinflated their subscribers to investors. So this is
that's not good.
No, it's not. It's super not good. But I will say, just as as someone who has seen Captain Marvel, and not to give away anything, but just general reaction to it, I think it's really good. It's a solid entry into the Marvel universe. Now, would this had been a really good phase one, because it kind of takes place during the storyline? It essentially is the second movie chronologically in the Marvel MCU, and there are some things that happen in it that kind of tie into that era, and I won't go any further into that. It's got, I will say, the first maybe 20 minutes is a little messy, but I can also justify it by what's going on in the story. It jumps around a whole lot, and but this is all a giant world building, character building movie designed to get us familiar with who Captain Marvel is and what she's capable of before we get her in the next Avengers movie, which comes out next month, which is
so exciting.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And of course, if you're a Marvel moviegoer, you have to stay to the very end, because if you're an idiot like the majority of the theater I saw it in, they, you see the little thing at the end and then the mid credits, and then they're like, okay, well, that's the end of this movie. I'm going to walk out of here now. And you want to just yell, right? Because it's like,
don't
guys,
go.
There's possibly something more. Goose the cat could be eating catnip, or something.
Exactly. You don't want to be the guy who makes them stay for a Howard the Duck cameo.
Right, because you don't know. And I stayed really spoiler-free going into this thing, so had really no idea. And I can't wait for you to see it, James, and obviously everybody else who is listening that hasn't seen it yet, because it did phenomenally this weekend, pulling in over $150 million domestically. And as of today of recording, it passed $500 million worldwide. So I'm thinking the haters on YouTube and their little protest with going to get people to try to go see Alita did not work. So
no. Although I did see Alita, so
yeah, but not this weekend.
I will definitely see Captain Marvel.
Right,
it wasn't over Captain Marvel. So I have a question for you, Chris, and this question just popped into my head just now, and I think it'll be an interesting one.
Okay,
are you more excited for Avengers 2 or when Solo came out? Like, I'm just trying to litmus test. Like, I know if we did 7, obviously you'd be more excited about 7 than you are Avengers 2, right? But
Oh, you dropped.
Maybe like cut it in half.
You
Like,
you dropped out there
to go
for a
see
second.
Solo, or are you?
So basically, no,
I
it's
can't
fine.
drop out.
You're here. So you're basically asking me, was I more excited for when Solo came out, or am I more excited for the upcoming Avengers Endgame?
Exactly.
Well, the fact that
Exactly.
I would go to a Denny's multiple times to get the 12
true.
cards.
I forgot about the Denny's.
So I'm definitely excited to see Endgame more than I was to see the Infinity War.
Yes. Yeah, I can agree with that too.
Because
I was
there's-
just wondering. I'm just trying to litmus test you there on your Star Wars to Marvel
Absolutely.
fandom.
We're all part of this.
Hype.
Part of the same family. Obviously this is not a spoiler, but there's definitely end credit stuff that kind of gets you ready for Infinity, for Endgame. And I think it's going to make the promotion aspect, the marketing of Avengers Endgame much easier now because of what they did in the post-credit sequence. So that's all I will say. It's very exciting. Good stuff.
Dude, you ruined it for me, man.
Oh, man.
Can't listen to Geek State anymore. They're ruining stuff.
Just major spoilers all around. Well, to pivot then into something else that caught my eye this past week. James, huge milestone, and I'm not even going to spoil it for everybody. I want you to tell the story of what just happened this past week.
Well, I'm not getting married and I'm not having a kid. I will tell you those two things. And that's very good because it's going to give me plenty of time to play my now complete Nintendo 64 collection.
Yes.
The one system no one wants. I have them all.
I don't think that's true. I think there are some definite hardcore N64 fans.
Yeah, there definitely are.
Absolutely.
I have the 296 retail releases in North America and some Japanese only games. I'm not done with my collection though. There is still some stuff out there that I want to get. Mostly it's in like repro carts of essentially either repro carts of fan made games. There's a few of those out there, like some Super Mario 64 sequels, obviously fan-made sequels, things like that I want to get. But as far as the retail releases, it has been completed, and I feel so much more of a man now. I feel real good. It's really interesting though, because I posted on Facebook about it, and people were like messaging me, and there's two questions that you get asked, and it's so interesting the way that the two questions work, because number one is how much money did you spend on it, and the other one is how much which don't ask. My canned answer was more than I want to admit, but less than it's worth.
That's a good one. That's a good answer, as it should be. Yeah.
And then the other question is how much time did it take, which is fine. I mean, but the answer truly is, well, 21 years, because I've been collecting since 1998. I just haven't been doing it very hard.
Right.
I've got some of my games are from my original collection.
Sure.
But it's so interesting that those are the two questions that you get, because those are also the seesaw of collecting. I mean, you can get a complete N64 set in a week if you want to.
Oh,
you
yeah.
just buy on eBay. It takes 2 seconds. You're just going to pay a lot more. So it's like the more time you're willing to spend, the less money it costs. The more the more money you have to spend, the less time it takes. So I thought that was very interesting, and I would like to get into the psyche of the different types of people that ask the different question, right? Like who's one set of people says how much did it cost, the other people say how long did it take, So I think that's very interesting. But that's
Let's do psychological profiles on all those people, and then determine whether or not there is a correlation between the type of question that they asked.
Exactly. So.
I actually have a question, and
Okay.
it's neither of the two that you just posed. My question is, what was that final game that completed the collection?
So originally, when I was buying for N64, I bought the things that I wanted to play, right?
Sure.
And then you get to a point where you have a lot. And then with N64, it's a smaller release, so it's only 300 games, whereas NES is 700. I think SNES is 800 something. And so I got to the point where I was like, well, I'm like a quarter of the way there. Like we can just keep going. So then I would start buying kind of lots and like reselling the stuff back. But one game, and then the very last ones was all common stuff, because I would actively search for stuff on eBay or in game stores. I would actively search for things that I knew were rarer, right?
Right. That's the more fun stuff to go hunting for.
Yeah, kind of the mid-tier stuff. So I didn't even really look at sports games or like I think the last 5 games that I had to get were Elmo's Number Journey.
Yes.
Rugrats in Paris, a fighting game called Mace.
All right.
Nuclear Strike, which is of the like Desert Strike and Urban Strike and Jungle Strike series.
Yeah.
And then the very last game that I picked up was a $2 copy of NBA In the Zone 99.
Yes.
Which is so stupid. Like I probably looked at 1,000 of them, you know?
Right.
Like, throughout the years, like I probably saw hundreds of them in a bin, but I have NBA In the Zone 2000 and I have NBA In the Zone 98, so it wasn't high on the priority list. But you know, when it became the last, so I bought end labels for the game so that you can put them on a shelf and see them from the tops.
Yes.
And when that's kind of how I was tracking everything, is I would just pull off the end label from the sheets and then put it on.
Yeah.
And work your way down. And I got when you get down to that last end label and it's NBA In the Zone 99. But the thing is I didn't want to just buy it.
Okay.
Right. So you can't just go on. I could have easily gone on eBay, bought it for $6 and called it a day.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But I felt like that was so anticlimactic. So I went to a few stores and none of them had it. And then finally, one of the stores, I just walked up to the guy. I was like, do you have any sports games that you don't put out? And he was like, yeah. I was like, do you mind if I like look through them? And he was like, yeah, if we can find the box. So I go back into the back with him and he kind of leaves me to my own devices in this big old thing of cardboard boxes. And I found it. It was sitting right on the top of the 6th box that I opened. So
nice.
But yeah, so it was good times. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm trying to, think about things that I can do to, with it, how I'm going to tackle playing them all. Because
there's nothing out there right now. There's not like a Retron that plays them.
No. So I have a very nice Nintendo 64 that has an Ultra HD. It's called Ultra HDMI.
Okay.
And it takes it's a hard mod. So it has to be like soldered into the board and all that. I didn't do all this. I bought it
pre-modded.
But I bought it already modded. But essentially it takes the video feed straight from the board and outputs it on an HDMI.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
So mine goes straight HDMI to HDMI, and it has like this menu you can go into and add scan lines and do anything you really want, and however you prefer to play. But yeah, so I use that, and I don't remember what the question was, but yeah, so that's what I use to play my N64 game. Sorry.
That's awesome. That is incredible. It's a huge accomplishment. I feel like anytime you post your collection, whether it's actually you posting or I'm speaking in general, like when I published a Facebook page once of my Star Wars room at the time, which is now it's still out there, and randomly it gets random new likes to it and stuff. That room doesn't really exist anymore. I've completely changed everything up, but people are like, oh my gosh, like you think it's this nerdy thing that you're kind of like sort of proud of, but also kind of like afraid for people to see that. And then they see it and there's some sort of respect that comes along with it. And I think it has to do with just sort of like diligency or something like, wow, you stuck with this.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, is my most of the people who commented on my picture on Facebook were not people that I went to college with, but it's people that I went to junior high and high school with, because they remember when I was playing these games, and a lot of them, we played them together. So it was pretty interesting to see that was the people who commented more were people that, I grew up with playing the system.
That's awesome. I think it's super cool. And so now you're on to the GameCube, right? Is that your?
No, I don't know. I think so.
Think you're
now,
done?
Yeah. Well, I'm done with complete sets. I won't own another complete set unless somebody's just selling one that I run into and it's super cheap or something. Like, I can't imagine I would go after another complete set. So I think I'm going to go after more series. So like I want to own all the Mega Men. that type of thing.
That's a good one. Those, man, the Nintendo, the NES versions are so expensive.
Yeah, I know. That's why I have all 6 Famicom ones because they're way cheaper. You can get all 6 Famicom ones for like $80.
Yeah, and you can't even get.
They're different colors and they're a lot cooler. The labels are cooler. You don't have the fat white guy with the gun on Mega Man 1.
So bad. Well, talking about things that are so bad, how's that for a transition? In a little bit, we're going to be talking about Batman because it's his 80th anniversary. So before we get into headlines, James and I took a famous BuzzFeed quiz to find out which Batman villain you are. We were asked all kinds of questions like, what do you seek more, like vengeance or revenge or respect? Which Marvel character would you like to, which Marvel villain would you like to hang out with most, et cetera, et cetera. And we have our results. I'll go first. And I kind of thought I'm happy with it. Let me just say that it's not the worst, Batman villain out there. I got Two-Face. Says you care a lot about justice and order in part because you're constantly fighting a war against your own dark side. Because of this, you have trouble making hard decisions. So true, BuzzFeed. And then James, you took the quiz too. What'd you get?
I did, and it's really funny. I'm not too keen on the character that I got, but the writing is quite spot on. It's you hate the part of yourself that's uptight and repressed, and overcompensate by acting out in dangerous / childish ways, like owning a complete set of N64 games. You're attracted to darkness and chaos mostly because it's more fun, and I got Harley Quinn. So Margot Robbie and I have something in common.
There you go. So, like I said, we're going to talk about Batman in just a little bit, but first it's time for some headlines. So we got a pair of Star Wars headlines because for whatever reason, I mean, there was other stuff out there, but nothing that really was kind of big and caught my eye personally. And the big one, which is that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which we talked about on last week's episode. So if you haven't heard that one yet, we're talking about all the things you can do there, the food, the rides, the shops, etc. All the ways Disney can take your money while you are happy about it. Star Wars Galaxy Edge revealed the opening dates for both of the parks, and they are so much sooner than what most people were thinking. The park in California at Disneyland is going to open May 31st, which is a couple of months earlier than, I think maybe they were expecting June. I think I have some friends that were going in July because they assumed it was going to open in June. So that's actually really good because it's going to open earlier. So maybe some crowds will, be less crowded. I'm kidding. It's going to be nuts. Disney World in Orlando was on track for a late fall opening, but surprised just about everybody that I was talking to with an August 29th opening. Now, there is an asterisk by this because not everything's going to be open yet. So basically, they're just opening the park early to let people walk around and do stuff. Flight of the Falcon will be open. However, Rise of the Resistance will not be ready for the opening of the park. One also thing to note. So if you are planning to go to either of those parks during the time that it just opens, for at least the first month, you're going to need an online registration to make a reservation, basically, so that you can get into this park. So they're going to really tightly control how many people can go through during this period of time. It's free to do that, and I'm sure you can do it through the Disney app. So if you're going, good luck, and bring me back some merch.
Send it to P.O. Box, blah, 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 blah,
blah, blah. We don't have a P.O. Box because we're not fancy yet.
That's true. Get excited, man.
I'm excited to go.
I'll be there in 7 years.
Yeah.
when
none of the animatronics work anymore, and
it's a shell of what it used to be. It's like getting on It's a Small World now, if that even exists anymore.
It does. It does. Sadly, it still
probably
does.
Pretty bad. So in other news, I guess, there was a recent release of someone who made a fan version update to Episode 1 Pod Racer in the Unreal Engine, which you've seen a lot of these recently. There's been a lot. Somebody remade Ocarina of Time, the opening Karuka Village or whatever it's called in Unreal, and looks really cool. But we'll never see that game get made. But
No.
The remake was made by a modder by the name of Rob Jen. And he released the demo for the project that you can download on Google Drive, but that's
maxed out
only until it gets taken down, and it maxed out almost immediately. So no one can download it anymore. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I've seen a YouTube video of it. It looks nice, but obviously it doesn't have like the polish of a professionally developed game. You kind of clip through rocks and things like that, and the engines don't really move like you would expect them to when he's turning and things. But it looks pretty. It does. The environment does.
It does look pretty, and I think they, I don't know what goes into all that kind of work, but the stadium, the modeling, it makes me want there to be more freaking Star Wars games. The EA is just sitting on this license and not doing stuff. And it seems like if this one guy could churn out the Boonta Eve Classic, granted, he only modeled one pod racer. So even if you play in the demo, against computer AI, everybody is flying Anakin's pod. But I would totally play it. It was the reason why I bought an N64, was the pack-in, version that came with pod racer.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better games on N64 in my opinion, and I would love a remake of it or a new version of it of some sort, because unfortunately Super Bombad Racing on the PS2 just doesn't cut the mustard.
Take up your visuals, counting.
This is a feature presentation.
And now, on with the show.
At a budget reportedly in excess of $40 million, Batman finally got off the ground last night, and the excess continued as a crush of fans and lines of stars were on hand for a Gotham-sized premiere.
Batman, one of the most iconic superheroes ever, which made its debut in Detectives Comics number 27, arrived in March 30th of 1939, even though the date on the cover says May. Created by Bill Kane and Bob Finger, who Bob Finger wasn't ever really added to the credits until most recently, is turning 80 years old this month, and DC's kind of kicking off a whole year's worth of celebrations. And in fact, if right now South by Southwest is going on in Austin, Texas. So if you're driving anywhere near that, just steer clear, take the loop, go around it. It is a madhouse. It is a mess. They're going to unleash 1.5 million live bats this Friday, or basically they're just going to take credit for something that happens all the time anyways in Austin at the bridge. I was like, this is kind of crazy. They're just going to claim.
Yeah, you can literally go every day and see the releasing of the bats.
It's cool though. Way to good PR people kind of, taking advantage of something that naturally always happens.
Now, if they hit up a bat signal, that'd be pretty sweet. If they had like a bat signal going in the air while that was going on.
That is interesting that you say that. So later this year, so let me give you a rundown of the things that are coming up. On March 19th, fans can purchase a hardcover book, Detective Comics 80 Years of Batman, the Deluxe Edition. I'm assuming there's a regular edition that may already be out there. At WonderCon in Anaheim, California, they're doing a Happy Birthday Batman panel, which will be held March 29th through the 31st. June 23rd marks the 30th anniversary of the 1989 Batman movie, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. Unspecified tie-ins. There'll be some stuff at San Diego Comic-Con that hasn't been announced yet, but we just know something will happen. September 21st. So everybody go get your capes ready, get your cowls ready, go find a friend to dress as Robin. It'll be Batman Day with events around the world, including cosplay marathon runs and a synchronized lighting of bat signals around the world.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
I don't know about a marathon run and a bat signal. I feel like the rubber really seals in the flavor there.
I think you're gonna have to go more Adam West Batman. To
tights,
run
that makes more sense. Or like roller skate Batman.
You know what? He has that, right? I'm sure there's a Batman incarnation at one point where he had bat skates.
There has to be.
I'm Googling that right now. This is a diversion. I'm going to type in bat skates. Just see what happens if I Google image search bat skates. Oh, unfortunately, it's a bunch of skateboards. Oh, well. Boo. I was hoping for like a crazy Adam West in the 1966 Batman with some bat skates. I'm getting him confused with Inspector Gadget, though. I think that's what's happening here.
That's true. Yeah, if you just type in bat, it's a YouTube video that is 7 seconds long of a man dressed in a Batman t-shirt and a cowl on skates pops up. So I don't believe that that they made that there at any point Batman had bat skates. But I definitely in my brain was picturing it happening, and I think I was probably thinking of Inspector Gadget.
And I don't know why. I don't know why. There's no real.
Because I was even in my brain, I was saying he would say like Go Gadget bat skates, and then I was like, no, wrong hero altogether. Oh, there's also going to be a touring Lego exhibit called The Art of the Brick DC Superheroes. It'll kick off in São Paulo, Brazil in September. So if you're a denizen of Brazil, check that out. I guess it's going to tour different places around the world. But I want to talk about Batman because James, in an earlier episode, we talked about collecting, and I talked about kind of the different phases that that everybody kind of goes through. You have those little things that you're super into. Sometimes it's N64 for a long time, and then which is for me that's Star Wars. Star Wars has always been the constant. But I would say about 1989, even though I cannot definitively say that I went to see the Batman movie in theaters, I definitely did get a chance to watch it on home video because I borrowed it from my neighbor Amber's house. So I'm not even sure if I was supposed to watch that movie at 9 years old. But I definitely did borrow it, and I may have never given it back. I cannot remember if I ever gave it back, but totally loved Batman. But my earliest, you know what, we'll talk about memories here in a little bit, but was definitely really big into Batman for a really long period of time before Jurassic Park kind of took over, which in a child's life seemed like forever, but it was, really from like 1989 to 93. So not a huge period of time, but I have many action figures in boxes. They are loose and they are broken all over the place. But I wanted to take a moment, James, to look at Batman in film. So we're not going to talk about necessarily the animated Batman movies that have come out, because there's lots of those. I know you mentioned Justice League Dark, which I'm assuming has Batman in it. It does indeed. But
let's talk about Batman and not just starting at 1966. Oh no. Batman appeared on the big screen as early as 1943. And because they're so old and the copyrights have, I assume, expired, because they are, the serials are available on YouTube, and you can get those in 1080p. There's the Batman and Robin one I was watching before we started recording is available on YouTube for free, and you can watch it, and it's it's a 2-hour movie that you may have to be very patient with.
Forgiving.
Very forgiving. But what's neat, James, while I was kind of researching this, so the two Batman serials, Lewis Wilson played Batman in the first one, and then Robert Lowry played Batman in the second film, the one with Robin in it. And there is some things that really get introduced into the Batman mythos, into the canon. The first being that the first Batman serial introduced the Batcave. And the grandfather clock entrance. Originally in the first serial, they called it, and it actually had a sign. Like it was like
Bat Cave.
And it said the Bat's Cave was originally what it said. And then the name was altered in the comics that followed the serial to just the Bat Cave. And also in the first serial appearance of Batman, so Alfred's always been a part of the Batman thing, but in the comics at the time he was a kind of overweight, portly fella, and in this serial he was played by a thinner, older gentleman with a thin mustache, and that from that point on pretty much carries on to this day. With the exception of, I guess, of Jeremy Irons. I mean, he doesn't really have the same kind of, thin mustache that Alfred now I can't remember his name. His name is like, doesn't matter.
Just Alfred.
Alfred. He's Alfred, the guy from all the, he was Alfred in the Keaton movies and then even into the Joel Schumacher days. Batman and Robin came out in 1949 by Columbia Pictures. And Robin and all that, and there's a whole plot to this one's definitely the more Batman, because the first one was very World War II era. We've got there's some problematic representation of the villains. Let's just say that. But in the 1949 version, they're playing against a guy called the Wizard, a hooded villain whose identity remains a mystery throughout the entire serial until the very end. And I won't spoil it for anybody. But that gets us to the good stuff, right? Batman 1966. James, how much of this have you seen? Because you're 10 years younger than me. So
right. Yeah. So I've definitely seen the movie, and I've definitely seen the TV show a few. I've probably seen half the episodes, I would guess. I don't even know how long it ran. But just from when I was a kid, I feel like it came on TV, like on Saturday mornings or something on like
TV Land.
Yeah, I don't know what I would watch it on, but I definitely remember watching the TV show on TV. And then the Batman movie, of course, everyone's seen the 66 Batman movie where he's running with the big bomb.
Right. Sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb.
And that's the one with the shark copter, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Give me the bat shark repellent. Like,
yes.
This film played, and the series, it's kind of a good representation of what society almost thought of superheroes and comics at the time, because Adam West and Burt Ward played it so, like, played it as a parody.
Also, on this one, they didn't just label the Batcave; they labeled literally everything.
Everything. It was like the Wes Anderson of Batman series.
It's like Batman computer, Batman screen, Batman toothbrush, Batman flamethrower.
Which is part of the charm of it, really. I think it's
right.
It's such a fun thing, and it's in just some weird, interesting things, like how there was 3 different actresses that played Catwoman. There were two guys that played the Riddler. Frank Gorshin played him originally, and he's the one that you're most familiar with seeing. But also the dad from the Addams Family was the Riddler for a season that Frank Gorshin couldn't. For whatever reasons, couldn't do it. Burgess Meredith was the Penguin, and of course Cesar Romero was the Joker. And Cesar Romero at the time was super famous, and part of his fame and his look was his mustache, and so he would not shave it off, so they just make-upped over it. And my favorite part of his Funko Pop that I have is that he has a mustache that they kind of
just painted over.
Yes. So there's this like remnant of a mustache that's still there.
That's hilarious.
I think is just awesome. The 66, it ended, of course, it did 3 seasons. The third season, that's when they brought in Batwoman, Batgirl. Sorry, Batwoman's a totally different character. Batgirl was brought in as an attempt to try to salvage ratings at the time. By the second season, Batman's ratings were dipping, and they needed something to kind of spice it up. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work, and it ended after the 3 seasons, and they got Batman the movie afterwards. You know what show also got 3 seasons and never got a feature film? I'm just saying.
Sequest?
Mm-hmm. Bingo. You got it. But
that movie's got to be coming.
Oh man, I would. Don't even get me started. We're talking Batman right now. So here's an interesting thing. So after 1966, Batman kind of disappears, and we don't see anything. And this is that time when you got Wonder Woman on TV. You got the Incredible Hulk. With the exception of some cartoon incarnations, there was the Super Friends and some other stuff where Batman appeared, and even some animated stuff where Adam West was there were Adam West and Burt Ward were also providing the voice. And of course, recently, before Adam West passed, they put out a couple Batman animated films with like Batman 66, The Cape Crusader Returns, and then there was another one that was Batman versus Two-Face, which was a character that never appeared on the original series. And then, of course, Adam West passed away, so we're not going to get those. But in the 70s, this was interesting to me because I was looking up kind of, that kind of dark time where there was nothing going on. In the 70s, CBS was interested in producing a Batman in outer space film, and now I really wish that would have happened. Like I don't know what that would look like, if it was going to be more serious or more campy, but
yeah. I wonder who the villain was going to be, because he doesn't really have any like sci-fi type, super smart, I don't know who the villain would have been.
But I think, they would have kind of did what they did on the original 66 series. They made up a ton of
made them up. That's true.
They were like, King Tut, Egghead, they made up people that, some of them, Egghead, has made comic appearances and stuff. After being introduced in the animated in the original series. I mean, it's sort of the same way that Harley Quinn wasn't originated in the comics. She was brought in from the animated series, which is fantastic. Yep. So we didn't get Batman in space, and we had to wait until 1989 to get a Batman movie. And I feel like this is a kind of turning point, don't you think? In superhero movies?
Well, yeah, it's a turning point in superhero movies, and it's definitely a turning point in the tone of Batman in a large way, just because it's very, dark and brooding. It's not as nearly as campy. Obviously, Michael Keaton, one of the best chins in the game, played as Batman, an excellent Batman. And I know you've said it before, would love to see him reprise his role as Bruce Wayne as an older Batman.
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
I
think they could do that. We
can only hope.
I think now we'll talk about the future of Batman as we get forward, but I really think that after whatever they do next with the Batman from Matt Reeves, I honestly think it could use a revamp. Right now it's always been kind of Batman set in current time, even though sometimes Gotham looks like it's the 40s or the 50s, but it's still sort of current. This is happening in this year, or just the near future, or just a couple years ago. I think a hard reboot of Batman saying it's a little bit into the future opens a lot of opportunities, and I think that's why Batman Beyond really stuck around with people. So Keaton comes in, does Batman, does it great, and of course, it's tons of money, so much merch. So of course they're going to do a second one. With Tim Burton returning to the role for Batman Returns. This is one of my sentimental favorite Batman. Just sentimental favorite movies ever. Mostly because my sister, myself, and the neighbors that live next door to me would I want to say I have video of this easily available to share, but I don't think I do. But we basically took the Batman Returns trailer and recreated it in my living room at my house when I was 11 years old. It's obviously very terrible, and I made everybody perform in front of a blue bed sheet. Because it was my understanding that it was really easy to just fix it later, And it wasn't really the right color blue. It was sort of a pale blue. So I don't think even if I tried to find that tape, digitize it, and then key out that blue, I don't think I can fix it. But all I do know is that I spent $15, which to me was a lot of money, on a
big budget
on a latex Batman mask that I bought at a comic shop, because I was not willing to pay $30 for the one that goes all the way down to your shoulders. This was just one that was just right under the chin.
the best kind of $15 mask.
Exactly. So we have this running joke with my sister because she was Penguin. Because again, it was just me and 3 girls recreating Batman. So she was Penguin, and she just was like, acting out. Of course, pillow under the shirt and stuff. But loved Batman and Batman Returns, and especially when the Batmobile breaks apart and turns into the Bat Bullet, that kind of skinny shape.
Yeah.
Just to slip through the thing, it's just sort of like, that's so cool. That's one of the cool things about Batman, and I think that kind of harkens back to the 66 version, but in a serious way, right? Like, Batman was being attacked by a shark, so he of course had something to deal with that, and in this case, it was like, oh yeah, the Batmobile breaks apart and turns into this tiny, skinny Batmobile that can, slip through buildings really no problem,
Yeah, they definitely he sized out every alleyway in Gotham and found out what the smallest one was and made sure that, he was prepared. So
it is Batman's superpower. He's smart and rich. So
exactly. It's the best superpower ever.
Yeah. And I think, what's going for this movie so well is I honestly think Michelle Pfeiffer, with maybe a tie with Eartha Kitt, but I think as far as the most badass Catwoman, I think if they ever do it, I guess they did it again with Princess Diaries chick,
Anne Hathaway.
That's it. God, the names are not coming tonight. I honestly still think Michelle Pfeiffer is a more badass Catwoman than Anne Hathaway was. No fault of her own, totally different type of movie, but yeah. So here's in the history where we get a bit of a shift, and we may just group these next 2 movies together.
And these are the first ones that I remember seeing in theaters was Batman Forever, with Jim Carrey, who was the rage. That's probably why I went and saw it. It wasn't even because it was Batman. It was because it was Jim Carrey. I don't know what the deal was. But yeah, definitely remember seeing both Schumacher films in theaters, and as a kid, absolutely loving them. As an adult, questioning my entire existence.
Absolutely. Oh, actually, did we already talk about in a previous episode about Marlon Wayans being originally cast for Robin in Batman Returns?
We might have briefly talked about it, but I don't know that we went any more detail than that as an aside.
Yeah, he was on Conan or something, and he was talking about it, and I was like, that is so fascinating, which made me immediately think of the Robin figure that came out during that time of Batman Returns, and he had this really high flat top. And I always thought that was so different than any version of Robin we'd ever seen, and Marlon Wayans kind of brought it up, and he didn't actually confirm it or say why, but he kind of hinted at that's why that figure was made, because it was supposed to be his figure from the movie, but then they just recasted in different plastic and made it a Robin that's more consistent with the look of Robin from the cartoon, from the comics. But but in this movie we get a different Robin. We get Chris O'Donnell in this, which I find a fine Robin.
Of Navy NCIS fame.
Of course, most people know him from that. Nothing else.
Probably guess that's probably accurate. Most people who know Chris O'Donnell probably know him from that, just because it's been on for so damn long.
Most maybe so.
I know that's where my stepmother recognizes him from. Certainly isn't Batman.
No, probably not. I definitely I always was a fan of Robin. Kind of as he really always does almost sometimes more than I don't know. It's just sort of like here's second fiddle to Batman, who gets all the attention, and Robin is kind of in a lot of ways, if he's not getting himself into a lot of trouble, he's solving stuff. It's sort of like Penny and Brain on Inspector Gadget, to bring that back up. And I think he played a pretty cool Robin. Like, I was like, they made Robin cool. That was my opinion. Of course, in 1995,
he had a motorcycle, man.
Yeah, and an earring.
Whoa!
Yeah, he's not just a circus performer. He's a badass. He's
not just any Dick. He's Dick Grayson.
That's right. We also got Tommy Lee Jones, hot off the heels of The Fugitive. So he was basically popping up everywhere at the time, playing Two-Face. The movie came out, did awesome. I of the two Joel Schumacher films, which of course this is an obvious thing, Batman Forever, I still really enjoy that movie. And I still chuckle when they land at Riddler's kind of lair, and he's like, "Holy rusted metal, Batman," and he's like, "What?" Val Kilmer. Of course, Val Kilmer, we kind of glossed over the whole fact that Val Kilmer, Iceman, is playing Batman in this one. And I think Val Kilmer does a good, this is like the opposite. I always felt like Val Kilmer played a good Bruce Wayne and kind of a so-so Batman.
Right.
And I think Keaton plays a great Batman and kind of a goofy Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Val Kilmer definitely. I actually liked him in the character. Even as a kid, I thought that he was like the coolest. And I had definitely seen Top Gun before, and I didn't even realize it until years later that it was the same person. It's just like, oh,
it's the hair. It's the hair. It's what it is. Batman Forever was released June 16th, 1995, with financial success, earning $350 million worldwide and 3 Academy Award nominations. But I'm sure they were all for makeup and effects and sound mixing, which are not little things. Those are big deals. And then also coming up just a couple years later, we got the disaster that was Batman and Robin, which is I saw this movie for free, and and not because someone paid for it, but because it was one of those like radio station promotions. And you showed up and you got in line for it, and we saw this movie, and it's really not great. It received numerous nominations for the Razzies, and if you look up like worst films of all time, or especially superhero films, it always ranks up there. But it's got George Clooney.
Chris, I hate to interrupt you, but Batman Forever was nominated for Best Cinematography.
Oh, my goodness.
It must have been a rough year.
Live fact check. Oh, my goodness. So I take it back. Yeah.
But, yeah, we had George Clooney, who was Batman, who, he was Batman, whatever. I think this one switches the gears back, or I think he follows in Val Kilmer's footsteps. I think George Clooney, also good Bruce Wayne, not so great Batman. But
agreed. Because
George Clooney's Batman in real life. He does Nest Pot commercials or whatever, so that he can have a satellite that tracks terrorists. Yes. This guy's awesome.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. If anybody out there could actually be Batman, if there was a Batman out there, I would say George Clooney could possibly be him. And we just don't know. If Gotham City was a real place in New Jersey, it would actually happen. Which I didn't know that. I didn't realize Gotham City was New Jersey.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
makes sense. But
yeah. And Metropolis is in like Delaware, across the river or something. Yeah,
interesting.
You learn things when you Google things. Well, because Batman and Robin did not do very well, there was a Batman movie called Batman Unchained. Warner Brothers was actually like really impressed with what was coming out of the film, and so they were like, "All right, Joel, you're gonna get your 3rd movie. Let's do this." And then the movie came out, and it was like, "Oh no, not gonna work." And this movie, it was supposed to be the Scarecrow was going to be the main villain. Joker was going to return as a hallucination in Batman's mind. And Harley Quinn would have made her first appearance in a movie. She was her backstory was rewritten a bit because she was going to be the Joker's daughter trying to kill Batman to revenge the father's death. Clooney, O'Donnell, and Alicia Silverstone were all signed, ready to go for this, but of course. It didn't happen. But here's the most shameful thing. Schumacher had approached Nicolas Cage for the role of Scarecrow, and we were what? We did not get Nick Cage.
We've been robbed of 2 Nicolas Cage superhero comic book roles, and we had to settle for him in Kick-Ass.
Well, and also, I mean, he's Spider-Man Noir. And
that's true.
So we got him.
Yeah, that only half counts though.
It only does. It's just his voice. But Nicolas Cage would have been great as Scarecrow. I can't imagine a better Batman villain to be. in all that. Of course, there was Batman versus Superman that was going to happen at one time. There was some other stuff, but you know what? And we're kind of going long, and I feel like the Dark Knight trilogy is so recent in everyone's mind.
Just so we don't get hate mail, we do know that a Batman versus Superman movie did come out, but there was another one that was supposed to come out.
Right. There was one that was supposed to come out early 2000s, and
put down the keyboard.
Exactly. Step away from the comments. It's okay. We do understand. Dark Knight trilogy. Christopher Nolan took a totally different, take on Batman, made it a little bit more realistic. Don't you think? Like less out there. He kind of grounded. The whole thing.
Fewer crazy gadgets.
Yeah, I still think. The Dark Knight's a classic. That one, Batman Begins is solid, but I think the Dark Knight is of the three, what everybody would probably agree is the best of the three. With the Dark Knight Rises is good. I like it, but come on, Ledger as the Joker is just kind of hard to beat.
Too long and too many plot holes in Dark Knight Rises.
Absolutely. And then, of course, now we're in the present age where we've got Ben Affleck as Batman. And really, when I started looking at it, I was like, man, Ben Affleck was Batman longer than I think we give him credit for, because he never actually was Batman on his own. But, of course, he's in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, which is really difficult to get through. He's brief.
Not his fault.
Not his fault at all.
Necessarily.
No.
I feel like he was a pretty good Bruce Wayne and a decent Batman.
And I feel for him, because Ben Affleck, I think for the longest time, really has wanted to be Batman for such a long time. He's a huge Batman fan. And he kind of went through the ringer because no fault of his own, or whether it is fault of his own, fans are kind of mixed on him. And I think he was sort of just like, you know what, I'm done. He's briefly in Suicide Squad. He's in Wonder Woman. He's in Justice League. There's let's see. There's a toy version of Batman in the upcoming Shazam movie. Spoiler. And that leads us up to 2021, a movie that Ben Affleck was going to be in, and now he's not going to do. And it's going to be somebody else. And I don't know who it's going to be, but Matt Reeves is going to make it. It's called The Batman, and we'll have to wait and see it. Of course, Joker is coming out later this year with Walking Phoenix, which is how I like to type it. Walking Phoenix, like the Dark Phoenix. It's coming out. I think he's had a good role, but I really honestly, I'm sticking by it, James. I think the next step for Batman needs to be Batman Beyond. I think even if they go ahead with this, the Batman, Michael Keaton is the right age to play old, retired Bruce Wayne who needs somebody else to put on the cowl and take care of Gotham City.
I say you do that. You bring back Tim Burton, and you just finish that trilogy, and you take the idea of Harley Quinn coming to avenge Batman killing the daughter or whatever, or her dad, because they would be the same age, essentially, more or less. You would have Batman Beyond's Batman and Harley Quinn be around the same age, and I think we just did it.
I think people would be
solved the cube.
I think the only issue is that people would be so pissed if Harley Quinn was Joker's daughter.
People can get over it.
They need to, because I love it. I love that idea. They could have only done it back then, before she was a really famous, popular character, because she was only really in the animated series. Yeah. But now she's so synonymous with being kind of Joker's paramour, I guess. Toys and stuff, man. I had so many things. I honestly feel for the folks at, I think it was Kenner, that put out this line of the Batman toys, because really there's not a lot to put out. They had Batman, you got Joker, you got, I guess, the Joker's henchman.
Yeah.
Who else you put out?
You had Fat Batmobile, Skinny Batmobile.
But Batman, so what I love about it is the way they got around not having anything else to put out, because the first Batman, the toy that came out with the movie, had this awesome bat grappling hook. You pulled on the belt, and there was like a retractable cable that came out of his belt, and you could like hook it onto something and Batman would fly up. It was an awesome figure. But every other Batman toy they came out with it's Batman in his toxic armor, and he would be like metallic gold, and then Batman Scuba Batman. It's just same figure, just repainted with a different color and a different accessory that went along with it.
What the biggest problem about it is you find yourself with two Batmen and no villain, and you're like, well, what do I do now with my two Batmen?
It's Batman from the Batman from the Mirror Universe. Who's they got to face each other in combat, see who wins. Right. My money's on toxic sludge preventing Batman, or the camo Batman.
Gotta love active camo Batman.
There was one. It was like neon yellow, and it was like it was a underwater.
Yeah,
Batman.
I definitely remember that specifically.
Do you remember that for real?
I do. Yeah, I absolutely remember that.
So neon.
I was like obsessed with the ocean when I was a little kid. So like anything like that, definitely.
We would have been best friends, James. Had you been my age, we would have been Sequest buddies. We would have
watched Sequest all the time. Man. Just on repeat.
We can still do that if you want. No, I'm playing Batman. I'm trying to think of a standout Batman game prior to the Arkham Asylum run, because I can't.
Yeah, I mean the biggest one, probably the most popular one is going to be Batman: Return of the Joker on the NES. That's probably the most highly praised one, I guess. You have from disasters series, like Batman Forever, which is an absolute
Super Nintendo?
Disaster. It is Super Nintendo and Genesis, yeah, but it was in the day it came out maybe a year or so after the original Mortal Kombat, and everyone was doing the live action capture, and then it's a live action Batman that like shuffles his feet. And it's really bad. It's like a side-scrolling beat 'em up. My personal favorite is Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo, which is a kind of a Double Dragon style beat 'em up.
I think I loaded that up on my SNES Classic. I haven't yet played it because I hacked it and put all the extra games on it. Because I own the cartridges.
Because you own copies of those games.
I was just saying that. I do want to share.
How cool is it that I can just do that with N64 now and be like, no, it's cool, I own it.
You really can. You can play. You can emulate any game you want now because you literally own every single NES N64 game.
I think technically, legally, you have to dump your own ROM though, but that's neither here nor there.
No one needs to know. But before we wrap up Batman, James, any kind of like specific memory? Like, what's your earliest Batman memory?
Earliest Batman memory is definitely going to see Batman Forever, and mainly for Jim Carrey, because I just remember being obsessed with Jim Carrey at the time, and because I think this was like right after The Mask. Was when this movie came out, and I loved The Mask. I've probably seen that movie 400 times, but
that's too much.
It is. Yes, that is correct.
And explains a lot.
Yeah, right. I'm smoking, Anyways.
It's the best Jim Carrey impression I've heard all day.
Yeah, right. The most lackadaisical Jim Carrey.
Somebody stop me.
And I specifically remember when the Riddler kicks someone out of a window that's high, and then he scores his landing, because it came out right before the Olympics, which were in '96, and I like just specifically remember him being like, "Ooh," and he like rates it or whatever.
Ooh, a little rough on the landing.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna give it a 7. I don't.
He's got some good moments in that one for sure.
But the one thing that I do remember about that movie that I didn't like was his like bright orange hair. I did not like that. Thought that was weird.
A little over the top. But it was, it was Joel Schumacher. My earliest memory, and I was almost going to share it at the beginning, but before I really knew who Batman was, besides just the stuff that kids are kind of exposed to, like you're just aware of it. Little kids, even if you've never seen Batman, you know what Batman is, you understand it. Before a flight to Colorado, I literally could not have been 5 years old. I'm sure I was younger than 5 years old, but this is one of those memories that sticks out in my head. My mom bought me a DC. They put out this line of action figures, and I was sitting on the plane, and I opened this Batman. It was blue, blue suited Batman. Opened this Batman, and the flight takes off, and I'm kind of it's all I got is the Batman. Flight takes off. They turn off the seatbelt light. This is a different time. It's the 80s. And they weren't such a stickler about it. And I saw a kid across the aisle, and he had the Joker. And no lie, we got out of our seats and played in the aisle of the airplane with our Batman and Joker. Like, this is a clear as day memory that I have of this flight to Colorado. For however long they let us play in the aisle, but I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, you have the Joker, I have Batman, let's fight!" And they just let us
shit out of that kid.
I did. He didn't even make it to Colorado.
Kid landed in Colorado on a stretcher.
The way that I play with my action figures is I grip that action figure with my fist and I just punch the other person.
That's right.
It was good stuff. But Batman you could take any era of Batman and spend hours talking about it. And by no means are we experts, but we're definitely fans of Batman. So share with us on Twitter what's your first Batman memory? What stands out in your mind as being the best of the Bat? We'd love to hear about it.
Let's look around the region and take our pick of the week.
Shut up and take my money.
All right, it's time for pick of the week, and I don't know, James, why don't you go first?
I think I'm just going to keep the DC train rolling. This was actually a suggestion from one of our listeners. I don't remember who it was, but they sent me the suggestion via Twitter because I had said that I'd seen Justice League Dark and was surprised at how good it was. And he said, hold my beer, you need to see Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. And he was very much right. This is another R-rated animated DC movie, and it was super good. It's probably I've been like researching good ones, and everyone says this is the best one. So I think I've might have found it a little too early, but it's definitely good. I strongly suggest it. Family video. It was a family video rental. This one wasn't in the 2 for 50 cents or 2 for $1. It was $1.
Man,
on itself for 5 nights. So didn't get the deal. I could have waited, but I just decided. I figured, I got the bones. Wallet. Yeah, sometimes I've got the bone. So definitely had to pick it. Definitely picked it up. Gave it a watch. It was quite good.
Nice. If you got recommendations, send them our way. We'll check them out. Because these are officially like our stamp of approval. So if we say they're good, they must be. Mine is actually it's an iOS app. It may be on Android, but I don't have a device that does Android, so I can't just verify this. But it's a this is more of a creative app. If you're looking to do something cool with your photos, something you can post on Instagram and immediately get everybody asking, how did you do that? It's an app from the company Enlight with an E, and it's called Pixaloop. Pixall. I can't spell. Pixaloop. Pixaloop. Basically, you just import a photo into the app, and then you can select things to animate. So, for example, if you have a photo and you look super cool, and you want to make the sky and the clouds and stuff subtly moving in the background, you can really easy. It's a really painless process. You just kind of set the motion that you want, and then you lock off parts of the picture that you don't want to move. And boom, you've got this awesome atmospheric photo. You can even add overlays like smoke and rain and other weird stuff like a ton of butterflies for some reason. It's free to use for all the good stuff. There's a lot of extra things that you can pay more for. So if you get really into it and you really want all the features, you can unlock that. But it's an iOS app. It's called Pixaloop, and I think you should give it a shot. And with that, James, we've reached the end of our 10th episode of the Geek State.
Another one bites the dust.
Woo! We did it. If you'd like to join us in our community, join us over on Facebook at facebook.com/thegeekstate. On Twitter, we're at GeekStatePod. We're also on Instagram, so you can check out the story. I was recently at one of my favorite places, Gravity Damage Collectibles, checking out their latest pops, and that was on our Instagram story. So you can always kind of keep up with what's kind of going on in between shows. I'll be actually going to Patagonia in a couple of weeks, and so I may post if I run into some cool geek stuff while in Chile. I will share those as well, so everybody can kind of see what's going on with all of that. James, I need to get a picture of your N64 collection. We need to share that over on the Instagram.
We can definitely do that. I can make that happen.
Or I could do the hard work of saving a photo from Facebook. Didn't think about that.
That works too.
That also works too. So join us on all those platforms. We'd love it if you would share our Facebook posts and retweet our tweets and tell folks about it. Every week we've got new folks joining the show. It's been exciting. We're in our third month of the podcast, and the success of it is all due to you at home, or you in the car, or you running on the treadmill, or whatever. We love hearing from you, good or bad, whatever it is. Leave us comments, tweet at us, ask us questions. We love all that. So thank you guys so much. And, as always, stay excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.
You are fired! Or should I say, terminated. There's a big kahuna! Ooh, nice form, but a little rough on the landing. He may have to settle for the bronze.
It's always the same little song.
Crushed it.
Good show.